Hello everyone, my name is Quad and welcome to a bit longer video about all the INCARNON weapon firing modes. Now, in this video we will look at how the primary and secondary weapons fire their alternative INCARNON shots. We will not look at any builds though. I will make videos sharing the ones I play with at a later date, let's say. I just need to refine them a bit. I will however share my opinion on the INCARNON weapons because some of them are objectively better than others, and some of them are objectively trash. To those who know, compare INCARNON Toroid and INCARNON Vasto. It is like night and day. To make the video a bit more watchable, it will be divided into sections which you can freely move around, but first I want to show you how to get the INCARNON weapons. There are two groups of INCARNON weapons, the zariman and the circuit groups. You will have access to the zariman ones a bit earlier when you reach the zariman and rank up with the holdfasts a bit. You will be able to buy the blueprints from Cavallero and you will be able to build them as well, so yeah, they are quite easy to get. The second group requires you to complete the Steel Pass circuit challenges every week. Each week you will be able to select two of the INCARNON weapon Genesis adapters, which you will then be able to install at Cavallero once again. If you want to get every single INCARNON adapter, you will have to do the Steel Path circuit each week for a few months. So yeah, quite a lot. You can also see which weapons you will be able to install the adapter on by hovering over the weapon. But anyways, once you have the adapter, you will be able to talk with Cavallero about installing them on your weapons for a bunch of Pathos clamps and Duviri resources. But yeah, that is it. Once you have the INCARNON weapons, you have to complete a few challenges and then aim for headshots to turn the weapon into its INCARNON form. And then, without further ado, you will finally be able to use your INCARNON weapons. I will show all the weapons unmodded because some can kill heavy steel path enemies in one shot depending on the mods, and we will also not go over the evolutions because honestly, it's just too much. The video would be hours long if I did, and I might do that in the future, so we'll see. But yeah, we will first go over the ones you can get in the Zariman from Cavallero, and oh boy do we start with a doozy. Felarx is a shotgun-like primary weapon that, upon turning into the INCARNON form, becomes dual pistols that shoots out massive projectiles that go through multiple enemies and clear whole corridors. This is exactly what it is used for as well, long corridors, full of low-ranking enemies. You may also use it to attack bigger bigger foes, but honestly, I do not recommend it since you do have to aim. The INCARNON form does do radiation and impact damage, so it is quite good for crowd control by making enemies go against each other and also staggering them. But this may also be a hindrance since they will focus on the irradiated enemies, so, you know, use it with your head. I recommend you get this weapon if you like playing with shotguns or just get close and personal with the enemies. But let's continue. Phenmor is one of my favorite primary INCARNON weapons out there. When it is in its INCARNON form, it turns into a Gatling gun that is absolutely insane if you mod it for fast fire rate. Honestly, this gun can carry your Steel Path missions more than easily. It deals radiation and slash damage, which is actually the main way this gun will do damage over time. This is probably not the weapon for those that are impatient, but if you play with it and get the right evolutions on, man, Phenmor it can ascend you to godhood. These are Steel Path heavy gunners I am testing this Phenmor on, and it does not have any mods on it, just the evolutions. It is insane. But let's continue now. Laetum, the secondary pistol that is used extremely commonly in current endgame missions. Its INCARNON form is an automatic rifle that shoots radiation balls at enemies, that also deal impact damage. So, once again, great for staggering foes that you hit directly. You may also see that it deals area of effect damage, which makes it ideal for spraying and use without aiming. I recommend you use this weapon against lower ranking enemies and not heavy ones, since it is not the best against them. But yeah, that is it about the Zariman INCARNON weapons. Let's now go to the ones you can get from the Steel Pass circuit. First, we will look at the primary ones, starting with Boar. Boar is a shotgun that turns into an INCARNON laser weapon. The laser will focus on one enemy and then also damage the ones that are close to it with the laser. Multiple enemies can get affected at once, so it is quite amazing. The damage of the weapon is heat damage, which can be great for crowd control and dealing with groups of enemies. Honestly, the INCARNON form is good, but you do have to take into account that Boar is a shotgun, which will make it hard to hit heads to fill up the INCARNON meter. So yeah, it may not be the easiest to use. But anyways, let's continue. Boltor is the next weapon on the list, which will, instead of bolts, shoot INCARNON lasers at the enemies that deal primarily slash damage. I myself don't really like Boltor in general, so take my opinion on this one with a grain of salt. Boltor's INCARNON version is just a bit underwhelming and less potent than some other INCARNON weapons. I don't really recommend it, but if you like Boltor, you will love the INCARNON version. If not anything else, at least for the buzz for the, well, normal version. But yeah, let's continue. Burston Assault Rifle will turn the typical burst weapon into a laser assault rifle. These shots primarily deal heat damage and have a small area of effect quirk. I like the weapon quite a lot since it is an extremely easy one to use, but it does have a massive drawback in my opinion. The drawback is the aiming down sights. Since the weapon is extremely accurate, it makes sense to have a good zoom while aiming, which is not the case at all. Compared to the normal version, it actually zooms you out considerably. But in reality, you can fix that by sacrificing a mod slot for some additional zoom. Some do consider that a waste of a slot though, especially if playing level cap missions. But yeah, let's continue to our first bow now, Dread. Dread turns its INCARNON form into a bit better bow. It shoots waves that will deal heat damage and will pierce through rows of enemies. I recommend you use this one for clearing halls with low-ranking enemies, since the normal Dread is still far better when dealing with the heavy ones. So we can say it is very situational. At times you will also strike impact and slash status effects on enemies, but honestly, I would not count on that. What I would count on though, is the next weapon on the list. Latron. Latron is a semi-automatic rifle that turns into, I'd say I don't even have the words. This thing will shoot shots that bounce a few times and deal radial damage. The damage is in the form of heat damage, and you do have to aim a bit to hit as many enemies as possible since the shots will curve towards the enemies just a little. But honestly, this is a weapon that can destroy whole maps of low and high ranking enemies, especially if you mod it for critical chance. It is absolutely insane when it comes to that. Latron INCARNON is a must-have since it is a very fun to use weapon. You can also get all red crits extremely easily for those that really love critical damage. Next one, Miter. Miter is one of the community's favorites, I'd say. The weapon turns into an automatic orb shooting gun that deals heat damage. The orbs will travel from the enemy you hit to some other enemy in a very close proximity to it, up to 3 times, which means it is quite good for crowd control. The INCARNON mode on Miter is extremely satisfying to use due to so many numbers you will see and visual effects it produces. So many colors, it is so good to look at. If you skip this one, you're missing out on quite a lot of fun, especially since the damage on it is absolutely ridiculous when you mod it. Yeah, I do recommend it. But now let's continue to the next weapon, the staple of Warframe. Braton. Its INCARNON form is quite satisfying to use, especially if you want to feel like those movie characters that come out of the swamp water with a bandana around their head. You know, just, yeah. INCARNON Braton will deal heat damage to enemies, with some radial damage and quite a bit lower fire rate. It will also have considerably less zoom while aiming the gun, which is not the best, but if you want to play with a Braton a bit, it's quite good, just maybe not for level cap missions. I have my INCARNON Genesis adapter thingy on the Mark 1 Braton, and it is absolutely okay for Steel Path. Come at me at my Super Forma Braton. But yeah, let's continue to the next staple of Warframe, Paris. Paris has an INCARNON form that doesn't really do different things than the normal version. Shots will pierce up to a few meters after they hit the first target and will deal heat damage. Paris turns into a bit of a shotgun, I'd say, but not with the trigger, just with a string that is powered by the whole power of the Void. It would not be my first choice when it comes to choosing the INCARNON Genesis adapters, but if you're going for all of them, be my guest. It will at least make Paris better at Steel Path. But yeah, let's continue. Gorgon Machine Gun turns into a rocket launcher when in its INCARNON form. The gun will shoot rockets that will explode a tiny bit later after they hit the ground. The area it will damage is quite decent, so it is great for crowd control and dealing with low-ranking enemies. The shots will deal heat damage as well, but I do not recommend it as your first choice in the INCARNON Genesis adapter selection. Other weapons are still better than it in my opinion. However, if your argument on why you want Gorgon is big gun go boom, you gain the correct opinion mark in every way, shape or form. Big boom equals good boom. Let's continue. Soma is a weapon that is quite good on its own, but its INCARNON form turns it into an automatic shotgun. The INCARNON mode damage does not have any redeeming qualities in my opinion, except maybe critical chance, but honestly, Soma is all about critical chance, so, you know, it's kind of its thing. The gun does not deal any special status effects, but it is fun to use and there are not many that fire the same way, so I do recommend you get it, just not right away. But yeah, the next weapon, Strun, is my favorite shotgun in the game, and my opinion here should not be taken with a grain of salt, but with a whole bag. The INCARNON version of the Strun will turn the shotgun into a rocket launcher with a decent area of effect damage. It will usually deal blast damage, but can also deal slash damage, which will eat through enemies like, I don't know, Cookie Monster through cookies. I recommend you get it, but I do warn you, it is hard to get it into INCARNON mode if you mod it too well. Sometimes it is hard to hit the heads of the enemies, which is a major drawback here. You just kill them instead. Not good. But yeah, now let's go to the next one, the last primary weapon, Torid. Torid INCARNON is such a delight to play. You will probably just leave other guns in your arsenal. The special effect of this gun is first, that it does not require headshots to fill the INCARNON meter, but just shots on target, which are easy to get. The INCARNON fire mode will shoot lasers that split to the closest enemies in a group and, well, deal with them. The damage Torid does is toxin damage, which is perfect for going against the Corpus. I use Torid quite a lot now, from the normal version to the INCARNON one, and I recommend you get it as well. It is a delight to play. Honestly, yeah, the normal version and the INCARNON version are extremely good to play. I recommend them. But yeah, that is all of the primary weapons. Let's now also look at the secondary ones. Atomos is really hot. While its normal version is great for clearing groups of low-ranking enemies, its INCARNON form is, well, the same, just in a different way. The fiery string of plasma from Atomos will turn into a small rocket that explodes in a large area, dealing blast damage. The damage is relatively good and its critical chance is also superb, so I recommend getting this one because it is quite fun. It is just very situational. The next one though, Bronco. Bronco INCARNON is something I don't want to experience ever again. The gun itself is not that good because of its low magazine capacity, long reload time, and there's probably many more things I didn't mention here, but it becomes even worse when it's in its INCARNON form. When you shoot at an enemy, the shots will ricochet into other enemies, seemingly at random. It is great for crowd control, but it is, in my opinion, far worse than most of the other weapons. I would avoid it in INCARNON Genesis selection. But if you want to get it, be my guest. Maybe prove me wrong as well. I absolutely hate this piece of shit. But talking about one piece of shit, let's go to the weapon that is this shit, and that is, well, those are the Despair throwing knives. They are easy to use and explode a second after they hit the ground in quite a large area. They deal heat damage, which makes it great for crowd control and dealing with low-ranking enemies. If you never play with throwing knives, try them out now, because this is the perfect opportunity. You don't have to be accurate anymore, which is the main drawback of the normal version. But now, everything can explode. It is great. Let's continue to the next one. I butchered this weapon's name so many times now, but Dual Toxocyst INCARNON version is just insanely good. It turns into automatic pistols that deal toxic damage and also ricochet into the enemies around. But while the INCARNON form of this weapon is very good, I would not recommend getting it since enabling the INCARNON form is too hard to be worth it. This one is one of the weapons that is amazing, but you will die trying to use it. It is great against the Corpus, so yeah, I like it because of that. But getting headshots with this one, no. The next weapon though, it is quite easy to get headshots with. Furis. Furis turns into a laser siphon when in its INCARNON form. The siphon deals heat damage and has quite good range. The main drawback of this weapon is that you have to move a little closer in order to hit things, but it shouldn't be that bad. I would recommend using INCARNON Furis on large groups of enemies, since you will destroy them very quickly. But let's continue to the next weapon, Kunai. Kunai throwing knives have a very interesting INCARNON version. They will hone to the enemies close to them and deal slash and piercing damage to them, which is actually quite okay. I do recommend getting them a bit later since they are a lot of fun, but I would not recommend getting them right away since you may have a bit of a problem with throwing them at enemies and them accidentally not hitting what you are aiming at. Yeah, they are quite fun, but a bit random as well. But yeah, here we go from one staple weapon, from Kunai, to another, Lato. Lato will turn into, well, a normal gun with additional effects when it turns into its INCARNON form. The bullets will ricochet to a few of the closest enemies you hit, which makes it quite good for clearing large groups of enemies. The damage it deals is also quite good. I myself use it on most of my missions because I love the simplicity of Lato. I also think it is one of the best INCARNON secondary weapons, and it comes close to Laetum's normal version, I think. But yeah, I may be taking it a bit too far with this one. Let's continue to the next one, Lex. Lex Pistol INCARNON is okay. It turns into an Arcaplasmor that deals massive damage in waves. The waves do pierce through enemies and deal radiation damage. It is great for clearing corridors and crowd control, but the major drawback of INCARNON Lex is that it has an abysmally low fire rate, which can be a hindrance in a mission from getting the headshots to killing things. I do not recommend it, also because of the recoil, not because there is a recoil, because who cares for recoil in Warframe, but because it is just not satisfying to use. Again though, this is just my opinion. Let's continue to the next one. Angstrum is the next INCARNON form of a weapon we have to, well, look at, and it is absolutely amazing. Firstly, you don't have to aim for the heads of the enemies, just their bodies to fill up the INCARNON meter, and secondly, the shots that come from its INCARNON form are a spectacle to watch. Angstrum turns into an automatic pistol that fires homing projectiles at enemies. The projectiles will bounce a few times and will deal decent fire damage. It is just amazing to use in small rooms, but I do not recommend it for bigger room usage since you will squander most of its potential. I do recommend you get it since you will at least play with Angstrum a bit instead of just having it as a master rank fodder. But yeah, let's also look at the next weapon, which also is usually just mastery rank fodder. Gammacor's INCARNON form is quite fun to use. Gammacor will shoot shots that will first vacuum in enemies into a tight spot and will then explode. The damage it deals is in the form of explosion and cold damage, which is not the best, but okay if you ask me. This gun is great for crowd control and collecting enemies in one spot. I just recommend you try it out, but it probably shouldn't be on your, well, first choice list, because other INCARNON weapons are objectively better. But yeah, let's continue to the next one, which is the biggest dog crap I have ever seen in WARFRAME, and this weapon is the only weapon, in my opinion at least, that got a downgrade with the INCARNON version, and that is Vasto. Vasto is... just avoid it. It's not good for what you get. Its INCARNON form will make you shoot multiple shots without the ability to aim, like some old spaghetti western movies. It is hard to aim because of the recoil. The damage is less than mediocre, but if you do decide to get it for some reason, you are required to yell "It's high noon" each time you turn it into the INCARNON form. Look, I'm not making the rules here, it is just how it is. But yeah, let's continue to the last weapon we will see in this video, Zylok. It has quite a unique shooting mode. Its INCARNON form will shoot a laser that will explode on impact and deal area of effect damage in a large area. The damage it will deal is heat damage, and the INCARNON form of the gun is perfect for large groups of low-ranking enemies, but not the best for heavy ones. I do recommend getting it, but just not as the first choice. But yeah, that is it for all the INCARNON weapons and their firing modes. My favorite primary ones are definitely Toroid and Strun, maybe also Miter and Latron, but for the secondary ones, I really love Lato and Atomos. Oh, and of course, yeah, zariman ones. All of them are absolutely amazing, they are so good. One thing all the INCARNON versions of the weapons have in common, except, well, Vasto, is that they will easily deal with large groups of low-ranking enemies on Steel Path. It is just an opinion, but if you want to play with some older weapons you haven't played in a long time, you know, just installing the INCARNON Genesis adapters on them is, in my opinion, the best thing you can do because of the evolutions that, well, upgrade the weapons and make them better. But yeah, I think that's everything I really wanted to say in this video. What do you think about the INCARNON versions of the weapons? Which ones are your favorite? Tell me down in the comments below, and also write why. There are so many different ones that it's hard to choose sometimes because they are very situational. But anyways, before I start rambling again, I wish you a very nice day and good luck farming the INCARNON weapons. Bye guys!